So in this video, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this pen. This is the Sharpie S-Gel Copper. Basically, this is a full metal version of the very popular Sharpie S-Gel. You might be familiar with the S-Gel. This is a plastic version, sort of the standard version, plastic body, rubberized grip. Then they have the Sharpie S-Gel Metal. This moves to a metal body, metal clip, still with the rubber grip. With the Sharpie S-Gel Copper, we have metal clip, metal body, metal button, and the grip in a kind of a weird twist. It is metal, and the whole body is copper, sort of as if it was like dropped in a bath of copper and just indiscriminately coated with metal, whether it kind of made sense or not. In the case of the grip, it's metal. Here you see no contrast between any of the components. The logos are all copper or metallic, at least, whatever. And then the clip is that same material. It's really interesting that they went so deep into the copper. They just like the whole thing is copperized. It's a pretty interesting release. It's been out for maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months. It's really hard to tell with these, but it's been out for a little while. You can find them on Amazon, some other places like that. I haven't seen them in person yet, but I'm sure that's coming since the S-Gel has been pretty easy to find, at least in the US. When you buy the S-Gel, right now it costs about 12, 13 bucks on Amazon. We see Sharpie S-Gel Copper. This is all the standard stuff. They didn't change the ink, nothing like that. It's the 0.7 millimeter black. That's the only one I've seen. You get the metal pen and you get a refill. And please note that the refill is there. It's kind of hidden away, which we'll see in a second. Everything here is very standard. It's all the S-Gel standard language. There's no changes here. Just they changed the pen body. When you open it up, you'll see that the pen comes here and the spare refill is kind of hidden away. Back here, it'd be very easy to throw this out and not notice the refill. I didn't notice it at first, and when it said, oh, it comes, you know, the body and the refill, I figured, oh yeah, the refill's in here. Thanks for nothing. But it turns out it comes with an extra refill. That is the 0.7 millimeter black. It's not sold in blue or 1.0 millimeter, but you could obviously swap the refill. Okay, so checking out the S-Gel, we see that full metal button. The clip, that steel clip, is coated in some sort of copper material. I'm sure it's not copper. You could tell from the resistance here and the springiness that it's not copper. That's not how copper works. The body is coated. It's all copper. It doesn't pick up as many fingerprints as I thought it would, but it definitely can look a little smudgy over time. And in some lighting, I would say it looks almost like a rose gold and not quite a copper. It sits a little bit on that pinkish side, but it's nice. It doesn't look too much like rose gold, so you don't have to worry about that. The most interesting part of it is this grip. They use the same grip from the other two pens, except this is rubber and this one is definitely metal. I was afraid that they would have coated the rubber somehow and this would start to flake or chip, but that's not the case. And it doesn't appear to be plastic either. There's plastic in here. Don't have any doubts about that. It's not fully metal, but the outside does seem to be metal, not just a coated plastic. And we have the metal writing tip here, whereas this one is plastic. When you take it apart, you could see that it's not like this thing is a hunk of cast copper. You see that thin layer of metal, and then you see the plastic insert right here. That's what's giving it most of the strength and preventing it from denting or anything like that. This is sprung, which is nice. Standard S-Gel refill. It's the same one you would expect and the same one you would have seen in all of their pens. Here's that bottom half. Metal grip, metal writing tip, and that plastic on the inside. If you were to go here and take this one off, does that screw on? It does, right? So good evidence that the pen is fundamentally the same. Things will get a little interesting when we get into swapping out the refills, since there are some changes between the standard S-Gel and the copper, but that seems to be the only really difference, aside from the copper being a bit heavier. Copper is, a fairly dense metal, plus this has more metal components than plastic components and more metal components than the metal version, even though these top halves are essentially the same. Now we have that metal grip. This one does have the metal writing tip, so it's really just the metal grip, which is pretty beefy, and that's what's changed here. The grip is kind of a big deal since if you like the SGL, presumably you like the rubberized grip. It is hard. It doesn't have any give, but it does have some grippiness to it. It has that nice kind of spiral pattern. Now you're moving over to a metal grip, and it has some nice warmth to it. The copper doesn't feel that cold, but there's no grippiness from the rubber. It's just metal. And you have that same spiral pattern, which again, it looks very cool, but it is definitely more slippery than it was before. So if you like the SGL, it's going to be a trade-off whether you want to move from a rubberized grip to a metal grip. The pen is a good deal heavier. That's another thing you're going to want to consider. If you don't like heavy pens, then the SGL might be pushing it in the copper, whereas this one is quite light, and even the metal one is still quite light. This is not nearly as heavy as a machined pen, so you don't have to worry about it going up into that like 50, 60 gram type range. So it has a nice weight. It kind of reminds me of kind of like the premium version of pens that you would see from like a Pilot G2 or an Energel Alloy, some of those pens, which I'm sure is what Sharpie was going for. You know, they kind of have done really well in that sort of standard gel pen, that entry level, kind of like the 12-pack type of pen, but they have yet to get into this sort of executive style pen, which is what we have here. The metal is sort of an upgrade pen, you know, not too fancy. It's nicer than the standard one. I actually prefer to the standard one, but now with the copper in that $12 range, $13 range, $15, whatever it's going to be, now we're seeing a full-on executive pen. This is a big upgrade. It's fully metal. It has a much more classy, noticeable appearance compared to the standard SGL. That's why I would say this is the sort of executive offering, whereas just moving to the metal body in that SGL metal isn't quite cutting it for me. That's just a nicer version of the SGL. The SGL copper is something that you could give to someone sort of as a gift. It's something you like maybe you wouldn't leave on your desk at work overnight. It's something that you would say, hey, look, this is nice enough that I want to swap out the SGL refill and put in a Pentel Energel or a Pilot G2 or something that you prefer to the SGL. Not that there's anything wrong with the SGL refill, but you know, with a standard pen, you're not like keeping the body and swapping it out for another refill. Whereas with something nice like this, the executive style, you're thinking, oh yeah, hey, maybe I'll use it. And when I'm done with that SGL, instead of buying some more SGL refills, I'll move over to Energel that I prefer. The writing experience, I would say, is really nice. It has some weight to it. It's not too heavy for me. It's a little slippery. So if you have sweaty hands or you're not really comfortable with your grip, this is not a great pen. It's also very flashy. This thing is all metal. It's very shiny. It is full on gloss. You definitely notice it. Some people might say it's a little obnoxious. Other people might say it's a little flashy. Other people might say, hey, look, you know, how flashy could a $12 pen be? So that's up to you. It is a Sharpie, so how flashy could it be? As far as the writing experience goes, yeah, I like it. I appreciate the weight, and I like the full metal. It's a little slippery and something I would use for short note-taking sessions, but not something that I would write full pages with or take a very long test with. The SGL, it's just the standard 0.7 millimeter SGL, which I found to be a very good refill. I don't like it quite as much as some of the top refills, like a Jetstream or an Energel, but even the Sarasas, I tend to prefer a Sarasa R to an SGL, but the SGL refills are very good, and I think they've gotten a lot of respect from sort of like the pen world or whatever, writing enthusiasts, whatever you want to call it. As far as swapping the refill out goes, so you have this refill, it's relatively standard size, and let's just try out a couple and we'll see how it does. Typically, when people ask me, the most popular refill they're trying to figure out is, can that pen body accommodate a Pentel Energel? So we'll pull this one out. We have a LRN5, so the 0.5 millimeter Pentel Energel, and swap this one in here. And it doesn't fit. So basically what happens is the shoulder right here of the Pentel is a little bit too wide to accommodate this. And that's kind of disappointing because if you go ahead and put it here, it does fit. So the standard SGL can accommodate a Pentel refill. I guess this wall is a little thicker, or the inner diameter is a little bit less, but you can get your Pentel refills in there. So if you are a dedicated Energel user, I would say beware. And the difference is, here's the Sharpie, just fits very tight tolerances there. So nice job. But by using those very tight tolerances, it meant that you cannot get your Energel in there. Let's try some other popular refills you may want to put in here. Here is a Pilot G2. This is the 0.5 millimeter, but that doesn't really matter. And this one, it will fit in there. It's right there, just barely fits. And it's a little, like what happens here is that the shoulders here are different. And let's compare the two. You could see there's a step here, no step here. So that's why this gets hit right there. So a bit of an issue with the G2. Let's test it out with a standard SGL. Similar issue. You may find that to be okay, depending on whether it's a problem for you. It's a little short there, and you could shave down this shoulder or this shoulder to kind of get that to fit in there if you wanted to. But G2 is closer, not great. Now we'll test out another popular one. This is a Uniball Signo. Not as popular as it has been in the past, and usually it's not something people are considering swapping over, but you maybe do. These are good refills. It fits here, and you could see that it fits well here. So if I go ahead and were to put that spring in, now put it down, and perfect fit. So that's a Signo 0.3 millimeter from Uniball. That one will fit in here, no problem. You know, you would have with the Signo range, you have a really nice 1.0 millimeter. You have a lot of colors you couldn't get from SGL. The ink, better, kind of a toss-up, I would say. Lastly, let's check out a Jetstream. You know, this is a ballpoint refill, and the Jetstreams aren't that interchangeable with the G2 size, but might as well check it out. Fits here, and so far so good. It'll probably be a little short, would be my guess. And no, I think that actually works. So there you go. So now you have a Jetstream refill. This one's out of ink, but you have a Jetstream refill. This is out of, you know, just a standard Jetstream Sport, and it's working quite nicely in your Sharpie copper. So that's a really nice offering, since you can accommodate at least what I would consider to be a best-in-class ballpoint refill into the SGL copper. You're just going to be limited on your swapping over to a Pilot G2 or a Pentel Energel, but you do have options. Okay, so at the end of the day, I do like the SGL copper. For me, it's a little flashy, and I find the grip to be a little bit tiring for extended use. For short note-taking, I think this is a really fun pen. If you're looking for something that looks nice to keep on your desk, just to get some personal pleasure out of it, or to have a little bit of kind of desktop appeal in case someone walks in and sees your pens, then I think this is a perfect pen. I think it's a fun gift. You know, if you're looking for something like under $20 to give someone, I think it's a really great idea. You know, maybe I'm a little biased here about giving someone a pen, but I think this is a really fun thing to give someone. And I actually do prefer it to, say, a Pentel alloy, the Energel alloy, which has a lot of sharp edges, and the grip on it is a little weird. I think this is actually kind of nicer in a lot of ways. Aesthetically, I find it to be more appealing than the Pentel Energel alloy, but that pen is like, it was really cool 5 years ago, and I gave it a really positive review, I'm sure, but it's feeling quite dated, whereas this is kind of new and fresh and kind of interesting. And again, they're right around that $13 price point. So I would keep an eye out for this SGL copper. I don't know if it's limited edition. They didn't say. They made it seem like it's standard, but might not be a bad idea to pick one of them up and kind of use it for a while, or keep it available. It is a fun pen, and I don't think you're going to be regretting buying this thing as long as you get it for, like, you know, that $10, $12, $13 price range it's at now. So yeah, that is the Sharpie SGL copper. It's a lot of fun and pretty good value, and a pretty cool pen, and I'm glad I checked it out. Thanks for watching.